And I am happy to host this event today, which is also part of our Future of Democracy series here at the Elliott School. Today we have 2 and even 3 experts who are going to talk to us actually about the February 2008 presidential elections in Azerbaijan. I'm sorry, in Armenia, not in Azerbaijan, a neighbor, but very different. The February 2008 elections in Armenia, which were very controversial. There were demonstrations, people killed, people imprisoned, and we're going to be looking back at that and also what's happened since in Armenia in this talk called the South Caucasus, a year of ballots and bullets. The ballots, of course, being in Armenia, but in fact also Azerbaijan, and the bullets being in Georgia. The main talk will be given by Professor Azbak Kochikian. He is from Bentley University outside of Boston, where he's a lecturer of political science. Before there, he has spent time in both Armenia and Georgia conducting research. He also has a book out this year called The Dialectics of Small States, Foreign Policy Making in Armenia and Georgia. After he speaks about the Policy Forum Armenia's report on these presidential elections, we'll hear from GWU's own Professor Kojim. He's a professor of international affairs practice here at the Elliott School. He has taught previously at the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton. He was a senior advisor to the Iraq Study Group in 2006. He was president of the 9/11 Public Discourse Project from 2004 to 2005. And he was deputy executive director of the all-important 9/11 Commission from 2003 to 2004. He's previously served in the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research and in Congress on the staff of the House Foreign Relations Committee under ranking member Lee Hamilton. So I am very glad to welcome you to this. And I hope we'll be bringing in more chairs for the people who are joining us. We look forward to learning more about the events in Armenia in February and ever since. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Today's talk, when I was thinking about the title actually, I remember the late Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, right before he was assassinated, he mentioned something along the lines that we believe in ballots but not bullets. So I said, that's a perfect, explanation of what happened in the South Caucasus this year. You had ballots, but at the same time you had bullets, and larger than bullets. Project that was larger than bullets. And what I'm going to do today, basically provide an overview of what's happening in the region, domestically speaking, but also realignment vis-a-vis Russia, because Russia seems to be on the rise, has been on the rise in the last decade or so, and we seem to not pay attention to that. We seem to not take that seriously. And I think to some extent, and to a large extent, what happened in Georgia was a manifestation of that. But at the same time, the candidates who were running for office for president in Armenia, specifically in Armenia, were very much wary, very much attentive about what Russia thinks and what Russia should think about that. The presentation is not going to be temporal. It's not going to be in chronological order in terms of the elections, what happened where, when. Rather, I'm going to try to present it in a way I'm going to talk about Russia first, then Azerbaijan, Georgia, and leave Armenia to the last, so that we'll have a discussion more focused on that, hopefully, but any questions on anything else are more than welcome. Just to put things in context, as you can see, South Caucasus is a region where you can actually see Russia from, unlike Alaska maybe, but it is very much associated, very much affiliated with Russian history, and it's actually a continuation of Russian politics. It's a natural or sort of a natural drive for Russia to extend to the south. It has to go through South Caucasus. Just an overview about Russia in the last 10 years or so. Russia underwent through a lot of changes in terms of leadership. I'm going to more focus on the leadership aspect. when we had Boris Yeltsin as president of Russia, there was a whole issue of Russia feeling that they've been disregarded by people. They had a superiority/inferiority complex, mostly because of the fact that we were once a superpower, but now we're not. No one takes us seriously. But at the same time, the transition stage was witnessed or was full with a lot of weak government. You didn't have strong person as a leader, and this is something that I have been thinking a lot recently, whether or not political culture in Russia has a role to play in the type of leadership that we have. Why would strong people, strongmen like Putin would be very popular? Perhaps that is mostly because of the fact that that's what they've had in history, and they would prefer to have a strong person versus someone with a strong hand to control them. And since 1999, Putin managed to change Russia, transform Russia, and basically he put up his face, or he put his signature on Russia. Many issues, we know many stories about, or we've been following the news, we hear a lot of stories about bringing back the old Soviet bank and changing the words and making it more modern, looking back at history and saying, the Stalin period was not as bad as historians tend to exaggerate about it. So it shows to some extent revisionism, but at the same time a clear sign of direction in terms of what Russia wants from the rest of the world and what Russia wants from its former states. And this is the concept of the near abroad, which basically developed after the collapse of the Soviet Union, where Russian policy circles started arguing that, listen, we have all these countries which were part of Russia for a long time, Central Asia, the South Caucasus. These are abroad. They're considered to be foreign countries now, but they're near to us, culturally, political culture-wise, culturally speaking, and at the same time we have a lot of people, Russians living in this part of the world. So this is one mindset that we need to understand when talking about Russia's interest in the near abroad. And Russia started flexing its muscles in the last years, not only because of the economy recovered, but at the same time, Russia also started using soft power, mostly the utilization of Gazprom, the state-owned agency, state-controlled agency for gas and energy, and they've been trying to control, or they have practically controlled the energy sector in most of their former states, and at the same time in parts of Western Europe. Today, one thing to understand Russia's power is that Western Europe depends, about 30% of its energy consumption comes from Russia. 30% is not a large number, but when you're talking about countries which might need energy and so on in the winter, depending on Russia, that makes the relationship between the West and Russia, it increases the gray, shady area between the two countries or the two regions. What does Russia have to do with the South Caucasus? Well, first of all, energy. Two major companies, Gazprom, as I mentioned, but at the same time, RAO, Unified Energy System. These two agencies, government controlled, have a goal. Their goal is to solidify, consolidate the control of energy. And today, for all practical purposes, Armenia's energy sector is controlled by these two companies. 95% of Armenia's energy sector is controlled by Russia. And about 70% of Georgia's energy company or energy sector is controlled by Russia. Back in '98, in '99, when Russia was giving up its hold on energy sector in Georgia, the electricity company, actually it was in 2000 when they were giving it up. An American company bought it. Privatized, an American company got it. But it didn't work, mostly because of the fact that they were trying to collect taxes that people were not willing to pay. And right in 2000, I remember my first visit to Tbilisi. A week earlier, a Russian company had bought the electricity grid from the American company. And the first thing that they did, there was a complete blackout. It was a symbol. There was no intermission. There was no interruption in terms of the power flow, but the Russians wanted to send a signal. That's the whole thing about the Russians. They always like to send signals, which in most cases are misinterpreted or people can't see them. But that seemed to be a signal that, listen, we control your power, you need to realign your policy in a way that it won't contradict our policies. Another interest that Russia has in the region, in the South Caucasus, is the proximity of the region of the South Caucasus to problem areas in the north, in the northern Caucasus, to name